Fight Mike here. Today I'm going to be doing the full card predictions and breakdown for UFC Paris that's taking place over the weekend, headlined by Nassourdine Imavov and Caio Borralho. Starting off with the early prelim opener, we got Shauna Bannon versus Sam Hughes. I'm going to be going with Shauna Bannon to get this one done by decision. I'm not sure why she's such a heavy underdog in this fight, as she looked good in her past two fights. I think she's around a 3-1 underdog, so there's some good value on that. But Sam Hughes has sort of only scraped past her last two opponents with Stephanie Luciano and Victoria Dudikova. And although Sam Hughes has shown some good wrestling in her fights, and Shauna Bannon showed that she's been able to be held down, I think that Shauna has got more room to improve in her fights. She's 27 or so years old. I think she would make some reasonable adjustments to this. And I think in her last two fights, her takedown defense has looked a little bit better. And she got a good submission last time out by an armbar. And I just think that Sam Hughes isn't going to be able to do whatever she wants with Shauna on the ground. And I think the kicks of Shauna Bannon at range with the side kicks and the leg kicks are going to give Sam Hughes a bit of problems in this fight. And I think Shauna's going to win a 29-28 decision based on damage where she gets held down for a round. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Andreas Gustafsson versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. I am very excited for this fight. I'm going to be going with Andreas Gustafsson by decision, though. I'm not sure why this isn't on the main card. I think this is going to be an absolute scrap between two wrestlers who are very, very good at wrestling in their own right. And then when they're on the feet, it's sort of like a mirror matchup between the two of them. Both of them love to go forward. They both swing head first with looking at the floor the entire time with some meaty overhands. And they're fantastic wrestlers. This is sort of like a bit of a mirror matchup between the two of them, except their wrestling styles are quite different. I think the difference in this fight, though, is going to be the physicality and strength of Andreas Gustafsson. If you've seen his socials, you'll see he's constantly doing strength-based workouts. He does a lot of heavy lifting. He's got fantastic cardio. He's shown that in every single one of his fights. And against Chaos Williams last time out, who's a strong fighter in his own right, he literally was manhandling him from start to finish. And although I think Rinat's probably a very strong fighter, I think Andreas Gustafsson's a bit stronger. And the thing is about Rinat is that he's coming up against fighters and made very close fights against guys like Carlos Leal, who I think he brutally robbed. I thought Carlos Leal won that fight 2-1. And then there was ones like Nicolas Dalby where he made it very close. There was the fight against Alessio Zaleski dos Santos, which again was very close. I just don't think that Andreas Gustafsson is like those other fighters. I think he's going to push no matter what. I think it doesn't matter if he's going to be knocked down in the first round. I think the second two rounds, I think he's really going to push. And we've seen with Rinat fights that he can get tired very quickly in them, especially if he's given a lot of resistance in the wrestling. If you remember the Carlos Leal fight, he looked tired completely throughout basically the entire fight. I will say, though, both of these guys have a big chance of KOing each other just because of the way that they throw. If you see tape on both of these guys, most of the time, when they're throwing punches, they're throwing with their head literally down, looking at the floor, coming head first, just throwing punches, throwing meaty punches. And either one of them can land the KO shot in those first two rounds. I just don't think either guy is going to have enough accuracy to be able to do that. And I think for the first round, they're going to be throwing hard at each other, being super scrambly. I think Andreas is going to push the pace from the minute the fight starts, knowing that he's got the cardio advantage over Rinat. But in that first round, I think it's going to be such a scrambly, enjoyable round to watch. I reckon there's going to be a lot of damage dished out from both sides. But after the first round, I think Rinat's going to slow down completely. And Andreas is going to be able to push the pace on Rinat. Maybe Rinat wins some wrestling scrambles. But I think that Andreas is going to be able to hold Rinat against the fence. He's going to drag him down repeatedly. He's going to be the better striker in those last two rounds just because he's got better cardio. And I think he's going to win a 30-27 decision on two scorecards and then one maybe a 29-28. I think it's going to be somewhat close, but the wrestling of each other is going to cancel each other out, and Rinat's going to gas out like he usually does, and Andreas Gustafsson's going to get it done by decision. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Brad Tavares versus Robert Brychek. I'm going with Brad Tavares by decision. I just think it's because Brychek's not the most amazing fighter in the UFC. He's got a loss to Ihor Potieria, where Ihor took it on a few days' notice. And say what you want, although Ihor's a very good fighter, he's very, very hot and cold in the UFC, and he seems to struggle to get a win. So to lose against Ihor Peteria on a few days' notice, a guy who very much struggles to win, I just can't pick you to beat Brad Tavares. Brad's shown that he can beat the bottom level of the UFC middleweight division. He's been a middleweight in the UFC for years as well, and has proven time and time again that he can hang with it, not with anyone, but with a lot of the middleweight division. And the thing is that Robert Brycek hasn't fought since February of 2024, so he's going to be super inactive, very rusty coming into the fight. And I think it shows a level of being not very serious as well, because he's on his first contract in the UFC and he hasn't fought in 18 months. Sort of shows that he's got a lot of stuff going outside of the UFC if he's able to stay alive off that little paycheck. So I'm going to be taking Brad Tavares to get this one done by decision. I think Tavares is a lot more slick on the feet. He's got very, very good takedown defense. His jab's very nice. He's got a good leg kick. He's got some good body shots. I think he's going to be able to get this one done by decision. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Sam Patterson versus Trey Waters. Mixing up the names with them both. But I think I'm going to go with Sam Patterson to continue his finish streak. The thing is about Trey Waters, again, he's another one of these guys who's very, very inactive. He fights about once per year, hasn't fought since March last year. Got into a scrappy war with Billy Ray Goff. And although Billy Ray Goff isn't terrible, I don't think that Sam Patterson's going to be drawn into a war with Billy Ray Goff. I think he finishes Billy Ray Goff by the second round, by KO. This is a battle of the giants between the two of them. These guys are like 6'3" and 6'5". But the thing is about Trey Waters, he can sort of get caught in counter mode where he's sort of just on the back foot looking for only counters, not really pushing the action. He did this against Josh Quinlan, and if he does this against Sam Patterson, another tall and lanky guy like he is, he's going to get caught with a punch over the top, and I think he's going to get KO'd by Sam Patterson. I hope he gets this one done. He's been having a little bit of a resurgence in the welterweight division. I think he's on a 4-fight winning streak with KOs and submissions in all of those fights. So I hope he gets it done, and I think he will over Trey Waters. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Rhys McKee versus Axel Soler. This is kind of difficult for me to pick because although Axel looks like the more skilled fighter in my opinion, most of his opponents are featherweights coming up to lightweights, and he's fighting at welterweight. I think that would be a bit more of a problem if he was fighting a better sized welterweight. If he was fighting a Renat Fakretinov, that would be a problem. But Rhys McKee is quite a small welterweight in the grand scheme of welterweights. When we got Kamaru Usman, we've got the Zoltan Ruziboev who used to make weight. It's not a massive jump up in size between the two of them. But I think that Axel will have the advantages on the feet, and on the ground he isn't any slouch either. He's got an extensive IMF AF experience against very good wrestlers, so I think he's going to be able to deal with it. And I think he's going to be able to KO Rhys McKee in the first round. We've seen Rhys stands very upright. He's not very slick with his defense. He's very, very hittable. And I think Axel Soler is going to get it done by first round KO. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Marcin Tybura versus Ante Delija. I'm going to be going with Marcin Tybura with this one. And again, why is Delija the favorite in this one? He looks pretty good on the regional scene. He's very scrappy on the feet, but that's against regional heavyweights. We have to take that with a grain of salt. We see this time and time again. We saw Martin Buday able to defeat Marcus Buchecha, who looked good on the regional scene. But Buday was just able to blob his way through, beating him by an easy decision. And people are talking about Delija like his training with Tom Aspinall is going to make him win this fight. But it's not really the case. We saw the same thing with Mick Parkin earlier on this year, who trains with Aspinall. And he had a lot of UFC experience. I think he had 4 wins in a row in the UFC. Training with Aspinall did not make Mick Parkin good. And we saw again in the Mick Parkin versus Tybura fight that Tybura was able to handle him. A lot of people were calling robbery. I picked Mick Parkin to win that fight, and I still thought that Marcin Tybura won it. Tybura was doing a little bit better on the feet with the straight shots, and those straight shots I think are going to keep Delija at bay. If you watch Delija's regional fights, you'll just see some blob coming at him, hooking like in the pocket, just like brutally hooking with him for no reason in like elbow range. And Delija is able to deal with him, smoke him out cold. Whereas Tybura is a lot more of a straight punch type of guy. He takes his time. He doesn't rush in a lot. He's going to be able to land his jab too on De Leija at will. De Leija doesn't move his head off center line ever. And De Leija squares his stance a lot when he's throwing, and I think that Tybura is going to be able to duck under it, get a submission in the second round. I think the first round is going to be pretty scrappy. People are going to think that De Leija is going to get the KO, but then Marcin Tybura is going to be able to stay safe, weather the storm, and get him down and get a win by submission. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Umar Sy versus Brenson Ribeiro. This is somewhat of a close fight, and if Ribeiro didn't get KO'd by Azamat Mirzakhanov at UFC 316, I'd probably pick him to win this one, but he did, so I'm going to be picking Umar Sy. The thing is, I'm not that high on Umar Sy. I knew Alonzo Menifield was going to beat him, even at a 6-1 underdog. I was so confident in that fight. People overhyped Umar Sy. They pretended he was super technical, super powerful. They said he was got fantastic grappling. We saw him get that Kimura... We didn't see him get the Kimura off bottom, but people thought he had fantastic grappling. And the thing is that even though Ribeiro got a good Kimura off bottom from Diard Nergage, we saw Uran Satibuldia be able to do that in the exact same next fight, in the exact same next position against Diard Nergage, using the Kimura from bottom, getting to top, getting the Ezekiel choke from Satibuldia. And that doesn't really show me that Ribeiro is a phenomenal grappler off bottom. It kind of just shows me that Diard Nergage has a grappling defense deficiency. And on the feet, although I think Ribeiro is more technical than Umar Sy, I think the grappling of Umar Sy is going to be better than Ribeiro. We've seen some slick grappling from him. And I think on the feet, although Ribeiro is not very technical, I think Umar's going to be... Oh my god, I'm messing up my words. Although Umar is not that technical on the feet, he's going to be way more powerful than Ribeiro. And Ribeiro, although he's going to be able to use his technique at times, I think that Umar's going to be a lot stronger than Ribeiro and just be able to outmuscle at him in those clinch exchanges and in those striking exchanges. And I think Umar's going to win a dominant yet boring decision. Moving on to the next fight, we've got William Gomis versus Robert Ruchala. I'm going to be going with Gomis to get this one done. Although Robert Ruchala is very good and it's going to be a tough fight, I think the elusive striking is going to be too difficult for Ruchala. Gomis has shown some really good footwork and some good feints when on the regional scene, which Ruchala has shown to never feint when coming into range. And Ruchala is going to get tuned up on the back foot the entire time. I think his striking game is a little bit too simple to beat a guy like Gomis. Although I can see him holding Gomis against the cage, I don't think it's going to be enough damage to sway the judges in the French and the French audience who are going to be cheering for William Gomis throughout the fight. And I think that it's going to be a 30-27 decision for William Gomis in this fight. Moving on to the next one, we've got Patricio Pitbull versus Losene Kieta. I'm going to be going with Pitbull in this one. And it's for the same reason why I picked Pitbull to lose against Yair, or why I picked Aaron Pico to lose against Lerone Murphy. And it's everything in between the striking exchanges that these guys outside the UFC have. I do think Losene Kieta is going to have a good UFC career after this, but when these guys come up to from the regional scene to the UFC, they realize that feinting is not a common thing done in the regional scene. People feint in the regional scene just feinting the change of levels, or they feint entering range. They don't really feint their strikes. They don't feint a leg kick. They don't feint a right hand. All of them do that. If you watch Pico on the regional scene, he does the same thing. If you watch Pitbull, he does the same. Even Ruchala does the same thing. The difference is, in the UFC, you have to adjust to those feints, and you need all types of feints. Guys outside the UFC never feint leg kicks. They never fake a jab, and I've never seen Losene Kieta feint a single thing. And you may be thinking, why am I picking Pitbull, who doesn't feint either? Because it's his third fight. He's seen the feints. He's going to be able to make the adjustments. We even saw in the Ige fight, he had a little bit more fakes. And the thing is about Losene Kieta is that he fights very open, and although he's very fast, he comes in with combination with his opposite hand literally at his waist. And if he's not giving Pitbull any fakes to worry about, Pitbull will be able to just time the entry. He's not really thinking about a fake on a leg kick, or he's not thinking about an overhand fake that's going to catch him. He's only thinking about the entry into range, and Pitbull's going to be able to time that with a counter over the top. And even if we don't have prime Pitbull here, he's still very tight in the boxing exchanges. He's very slick and dangerous. He dropped Dan Ige in the boxing in his last fight. And the thing is that although round one can be very boring, both guys just waiting at range, I think Kieta, as he starts to open up, Pitbull's going to be able to time him coming in, catching him with a counter right hook over the top, sleeping Kieta out cold. I do think Kieta's very, very talented, but he's super reckless, and that's going to get punished now that he's in the UFC. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Modestas Bukauskas versus Paul Craig. I'm going with Modestas to get this one done by decision. And the crazy thing is, even though Paul Craig is 37 years old, I would pick him to lose by KO even 2 years ago, because I genuinely think he's getting a little bit better on the feet. I just don't see the fluke potential for him to be able to get Bukauskas out in this fight. I think Modestas is going to be able to use the footwork, the range, the jab, and the leg kick to keep Paul Craig away from him. And Paul Craig's body kick isn't going to be enough to keep Modestas Bukauskas honest. And I think Bukauskas is going to catch him with straight shots coming backwards. Paul Craig isn't very good on the feet in the striking exchanges. We all know that. And I think that although he's going to have some better takedown attempts, we saw that in his last fight against the actor, I don't want to mess this up, Rodolfo Bellato. We saw that he was a little bit better on the feet against Rodolfo, but I think that Modestas is a lot more clean on the feet. He's going to be able to outdo Paul Craig. His takedown defense is good enough, and I think he's going to be able to patiently pick him apart in a decision. I don't think Craig's going to be doing terribly, but I think he's just going to lose 30-27 each round pretty easily. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Borralho versus Mason Jones. I'm going to be going with Borralho in this one, but it's a very close fight. I'm a little bit confused why this is a feature fight, because we've got Andreas Gustafsson versus Renat Fakretinov on the early prelim opener, or second to the early prelim opener. But I do sort of understand it. It's going to be a war between the two of them. Pardon, 1 second. Pardon me. It's going to be a war between these two, but I am very nervous for Oki in this one, even if I am picking him. The main reason is that whenever Oki is striking, it seems that he's super off balance, and every time he gets hit, he's literally always on one leg. But I still have faith that he's going to be able to out-volume Mason Jones. Mason looked good last time out against Jeremy Stephens, but we've seen Jeremy hasn't been kicked or grappled for a long time, and Stephens was able to drag it out to a war. I think at this point, Oki probably KOs Jeremy Stephens, and although Mason Jones is very tough, I don't see him getting finished by Borralho. But I don't see Mason Jones having the X factor to beat Borralho. I don't think he's got the grappling. I don't think he's got the submissions. And Oki's very fast on the feet. He's got great cardio. He's got good awareness on the feet. And Mason's not going to have the same speed and cardio as Borralho. And he's going to have to rely heavily on that dog on him. And he's probably going to eat a lot of shots coming forward. And if there's one thing about Mason Jones that we know is that as soon as he starts getting touched up on the feet, his face gets absolutely marked up straight away. The visual damage shows on him instantly. And as soon as he gets touched, he goes bright red every single time. And I think that Borralho is going to be able to win a 30-27 decision based on the damage. Maybe 29-28, just because he gets caught off balance quite a lot. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Benoit Saint Denis versus Mauricio Ruffy. I'm going to be going with Ruffy by round 1 flatline KO, but I am very nervous about this one, as I do really want Ruffy to get to the top. He's got a very aesthetically pleasing style. He's very fun to watch. But BSD has the grappling to sort of stifle all of that skill. But the way that BSD enters range genuinely frightens me. Every time he comes in at range, he's coming in like Daniel Rodriguez with his hands below his knees. He comes in without ever fainting. I was talking about these Bellator fighters that never faint. Benoit hasn't fainted in his entire career. He throws every shot with 100% and then crashes into you with the clinch. And with that sort of style, I think that Ruffy is going to be able to game plan for it. He's going to know BSD is going to come forward like that. Similarly to Pico versus Lerone, Ruffy's going to be able to counter BSD as he enters range, especially with those elbows and knees. Although I do worry about the cardio of Ruffy, as we've seen it's not the best in the Hamassion top fight. I do fear after a round of grappling he's going to be dead tired, but I think he's going to be able to catch BSD coming in for those grappling exchanges. I actually think he's going to get it done by a flying knee. We've seen that Mauricio Ruffy likes to game plan some sort of flatline KO for his opponents. And for Benoit, the best one is just a flatline KO him with a flying knee, because Benoit leans very heavily over his front foot, throws zero fakes, so you're going to know when he comes in. And he throws with his hands at his waist at 100% power. So if you do catch him, Ruffy's going to be able to sit on a counter shot or sit on a knee and KO Benoit. If he catches Benoit at all, Benoit is going to be coming full speed ahead into the shot, and Ruffy's going to be able to get him done by KO. And even let's say Benoit comes in with a more conservative game plan, that's just going to leave him open to getting tagged up at range. I think Ruffy, if he's given all that space at range, is going to deaden Benoit's leg with kicks. He's going to slam him with body kicks, hit him with spinning back kicks to the body, and eventually finish him with a flatline KO at range if Benoit has that same sort of game plan. But if he has the normal Benoit game plan of come forward and maraud forward, he's going to get KO'd in the first round by an explosive Ruffy who's a fantastic counter striker. And the thing is that if you see in the first round that Benoit is easily getting the grappling off him, just hammer a bet for Benoit to win it halfway through. And I'm thinking that Ruffy's odds are going to stay that way probably for a round and a half. So if you see he's still an underdog and he's looking tired by like the end of the first round, or he's still a favorite and he's looking tired by the end of the first round, hammer the Benoit Saint Denis bet. But I think that Ruffy gets it done by first round KO. Moving on to the main event of this fight. I'm really excited for this fight. We've got Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho. I'm going to be going with Imavov by decision in this fight. I was flirting with the idea of going Imavov by KO, but I just couldn't really choose that to be the way this fight gets done. I reckon this is going to be a very good fight between these two, though, and luckily for me, it was very easy breaking down these fights, as they have a common opponent in Jared Cannonier, and they fought him within 3 to 4 months apart from each other. And in these fights, I saw exactly why I'm going to be picking Imavov in this one. So in the Imavov versus Cannonier fight, there was an early stoppage in the fourth round, but Cannonier was doing all right in the fight. He was mainly just working in the clinch, didn't really land on Imavov that cleanly and couldn't get Imavov down. But in that fight, Imavov was countering Cannonier very well, and Imavov got barely hit clean in the fight. And when he did, he didn't show any effects of that. And he looked a level above Cannonier at almost every point in the fight when they weren't in the clinch. The Borralho versus Cannonier fight was very soon after, and it went to a decision where Borralho almost flatline KO'd him in the last minute. But in that fight, I thought it was 2-2 going into the fifth, and although Borralho was catching Cannonier consistently throughout the fight, he wasn't really countering Cannonier, and he got countered a multitude of times by Cannonier, who isn't a counter striker himself. Pardon. And this was a fight straight after Imavov did all this damage to Cannonier. Although it was a good performance from Imavov, from Borralho against Cannonier, it wasn't the same level of performance as Imavov had against Cannonier. The main difference I see in this fight would be the countering of both of these two. Borralho loves his straight shots. He's got a great long and stiff jab, and he's got a fantastic straight down the pipe. But Imavov's bread and butter is slipping and countering off straight shots. He's very slick with his counters, and I don't see Borralho countering him back throughout any point in this fight. And offensively, although Borralho uses his head movement well to keep his head off center line, defensively he's a block-first striker and doesn't love to move his head defensively. And I think that will give Imavov opportunities to interrupt his combinations with counters, and that'll give Imavov opportunities to use fakes to bring Borralho's hands away from him, because he is a swatting first or a what's the word? He's a block first type fighter, not a slit first like Imavov. And to be honest, I see Imavov using that straight to the body to slowly bring down Borralho's head and start to tag him up top as the fight goes along. As well as whoever goes for body shots in this fight is going to have a massive advantage. As we've seen, both guys have pretty decent cardio, as Imavov won a 5th round against Strickland, which is a good feat. And Borralho basically killed Cannonier in the 5th round of their fight. So whoever's jumping on those body shots early is sapping the opponent's cardio, is going to definitely have the advantage in this one, especially since Imavov uses head movement. So if you start working on the body work, he's really going to stop that head movement, worrying about defending those shots to the body. And Borralho will start dropping his block if you start shooting those shots below his block straight to the body. And I think, although these guys both have a cinder block for a chin, anyone's defeatable to the body, and everyone's going to be easily defeated to the chin if their body's getting tagged up the entire fight. I think Imavov's probably more likely to throw body shots. I can see him throwing some straights to the body, to the solar plexus, and I think that will work on Borralho. He stands a little bit square, but I don't see either of these guys getting a finish. If anyone, Imavov's probably more likely to catch Borralho with something he's not expecting. But in the grappling, I think both guys are going to cancel each other out. They both have fantastic time takedowns. And although I will say once they get to the ground, I think Borralho, if he can secure top position, has better submissions and ground and pound. But I doubt either will get each other down. And since both of them have such a takedown threat, I doubt either guy will kick much at all in this fight. So I think that this is going to take place in the boxing range. And if it's going to take place in the boxing range, I really favor Imavov in this one. We've seen his counter-striking against Israel Adesanya was next to none, and we've seen time and time again that he's very patient on the feet. He's got a good style for 5 rounds, and we've also seen Borralho's very hittable in all of his fights. He's not a very slip and rip type fighter. He'll try to stay out of range. His range management is very good. These two, out of anyone in the middleweight division, I actually think have the best range management out of anyone in the division. I would have said Adesanya back in the day, but he's gotten a little older now, a little slower, reaction time's a bit worse. But nowadays, I think these two are the best reaction times in the middleweight division. And I think Imavov's going to be able to edge through the last 3 rounds with better cardio, with better counter shots. I think he's going to get out-jabbed in the early rounds, but he's going to start working out that jab and start countering. That's actually how he finished Cannonier in their fight, was countering a jab over the top. And Cannonier himself was able to counter Borralho's jab over the top the exact same way. So I see Imavov's making use of those counters on those straight shots. I can see a finish in the last rounds, but I think it's going to be a 48-47, maybe a 49-46 decision where he gets out jabbed for the first round, and then Imavov slowly works his way back into the fight, winning and teeing off on those last two rounds, making it super exciting in those last rounds. Let me know what you think of these fights in the comments section below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.